Hello everyone. While we're waiting to continue our main Russia versus United States series, Fischer versus Spassky, here we have a chance to see a very nice game, also Russia versus United States. It's Peter Svidler versus Samuel Shankland, and I'm sure you're all going to enjoy this game. We even have a very nice photo of this event. It's from a Chess24 article. I will also put a link to the article in the description below so you can check out more about this event. There you have it. Not sure from which game this is. Perhaps it's game 3, definitely not game 4 or game 2, as Svidler has the black pieces in this photo. But there you have it, just to set the mood. And I believe Shankland is having the same blue blazer he wore at the Olympiad. So there you have it. And it's a game from round 4 of the 2018 match in Hoogeveen in Netherlands. Like last year, here they also have 2 matches. First match is Peter Svidler versus Samuel Shankland, best out of 6, and the other one is Van Forest versus Fedosiv. So this is game 4, like we said. Game 1, Shankland won game 1, then Svidler retaliated in game 2. Game 3 was drawn, where Shankland had the white pieces. This is game 4. Svidler again has the white pieces, and let's just check it out. It's quite a wonderful game. So in game 2 that Svidler won, he played c4 on the first move, and here he doesn't allow Shankland to improve on that game. He chooses a different path. He goes knight to f3. So the Reti opening is on the board. We have d5, e3, knight to f6, c4, e6, and the knight to c3. Svidler doesn't transpose into the queen's gambit declined, so very nice. We have knight to c3, and now d captures on c4. Bishop captures on c4, and now a6. Svidler castles, we have b5, forcing the bishop to move back. And here there were a couple of games played, I found in the database, where bishop to e2 was played. But here Svidler goes bishop to b3. It is the best move that the engine suggests. And already on move 7 we have a game that was never before played. So this position is not available in the database other than this game. So hope you enjoyed that as well. Bishop to b7, as a6 b5 has been played. Room has been made for this light square bishop so it can be developed, so placing it on this very nice diagonal makes sense. d4 by Svidler, knight b to d7. Black wants to push e5 at some point, either by playing c5 and then making room for e5, or just by making a breakthrough in the center. And he wants to do it by moving the queen either to b8 or c7, where she will help out with the control of the e5 square, and the knight from d7 is also covering the e5 square very nicely. Queen to e2, we have c5 now, of course challenging the center. We have rook to d1, and now queen to b8, getting the queen out of the way so the rook is not x-raying the queen over the pawn and the knight. And now the queen is also very nicely keeping an eye on the e5 square. And here Svidler pushes e4. It's a very nice idea because now e5 is not possible due to a very nice series of moves. D captures on e5, knight captures on e5, and now white has a crushing knight captures on d5. So there's really not much you can do here. You can try knight captures, but after g captures, you're still just lost a pawn, and you're in a terrible position with black. Your king is still stuck in the center, and you will not. You will lose a whole lot of material if you even want a castle. And of course you cannot capture due to queen captures. King e7, queen captures on c5, king goes back, queen to b5 check, king e7, and now bishop to g5 will be deadly. Queen to d7 is the threat of checkmate as the knight is pinned. And however black defends, he can prolong this game for a couple of more moves, but in the end black will get checkmated. So okay, after e4, you cannot push e5. C captures on d4 was played. We have knight captures on d4, and now bishop to d6. Shankland develops the bishop with a tempo. Now the queen-bishop battery is eyeing the h2 pawn, and also he's preparing the castle. g3, Svidler defends. We have castles, and now comes f3, strengthening the pawn chain here. At some point, the king will come to g2 or f2 and help out with the defense of the king side, as Shankland does have a very strong bishop pair here. Rook to c8, developing the rook. Now comes bishop to e3, and now knight to f8. At some point, the knight can come over to g6 to help out with the defense, but also it's a very nice defensive piece on f8, as it is. Rook a to c1, Svidler brings his last piece into the game, and now comes h5. Here, Shankland wants to push h4. Like we already mentioned, he does have a very strong bishop pair here. He wants to bust open the king side. Queen to d2, a move that for the moment prevents Shankland from pushing h4. If h4 now, then you can simply capture on e6, as now the queen-rook battery creates a double attack against the bishop on d6, and after knight captures or pawn captures, you will simply grab the bishop, and after a couple of exchanges, you will have won a pawn, and you will have a much better game. So, after queen to d2, we have rook to d8, and now comes knight c to e2. h4, now trying to bust open the king side, and here bishop to g5, attacking the h4 pawn. H captures on g3, and now bishop captures on f6. So already a very interesting position where black doesn't really gain anything by capturing on h2. If g captures on h2, king to h1, then g captures on f6 isn't possible, because if you capture queen to h6, and now rook to g1 will be deadly, as you can't really defend with knight to g6 or anything like that. Knight captures on e6 is coming, and well, black's position will fall apart very quickly. But yeah, you will even give up one of the rooks due to this pawn, and then the other rook will be very deadly on g file. So after bishop captures on f6, g captures on f6, and now queen to h6. Svidler is now controlling the h file, and if you open up this by capturing here, then the rook will again get his g file for the rook. So bishop to e5. This is the best move, defending the f6 pawn. If you try something like knight to h7, then knight captures on e6 will be very deadly. F captures, bishop captures. This is with check. King has to go to h8, and now h captures on g3. White now does have the time to play king g2 and the rook to h1, and black will not be able to hold this. So after queen to h6, bishop to e5, defending the f6 pawn, and now comes king to h1. H captures on g3 will not be fast enough this time, because if you play h captures on g3 now, bishop captures, knight captures, and now black can play rook captures on d4. Rook captures and queen captures on g3, and white's attack is over. It's now black who's in control of this game and with a better position. Instead, after bishop to e5, king to h1, Svidler now wants to bring his rook to g1, and he will bust open the g file however possible. Here, bishop captures on d4 isn't all that great, because now after knight captures, you don't really gain anything by capturing with the rook here. Doesn't really make sense. But one thing black can try is bishop captures on e4. F captures, and after queen to e5, threatening to capture on e4, white will be able to defend with knight to f3. After rook captures, and now queen captures on e4. King to g2, you've defended, and now it's actually black who's down in material. White is up a bishop, and with a better position. For example, g captures on h2, queen captures on f6, and still black doesn't have compensation for white's extra bishop. So here Shankland finds an idea how he can close the g file, at least for a couple of more moments. He plays g2, forces the king to come to the g file, king captures on g2, and now he plays bishop captures on d4, while the g file is closed off. Knight captures on d4, and here we have queen to e5, now with threats of bishop captures on e4, where white will most likely not capture. But another thing, when the bishop captures on e4, if white doesn't capture the bishop can help out with the defense with bishop to g6. Feel free to pause the video here and try to find a move that immediately ends the game. White is completely winning here. Give yourselves a couple of nice seconds or even a minute to enjoy this position and solve this for white. I'll give you a couple of seconds to decide whether you want to do it or not. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. You are an excellent knight maneuverer. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move is knight to f5. It's really a deadly move, as it threatens two checkmates, queen g7 checkmate and also knight to e7 checkmate. And it's not all that easy to do anything here. You have to capture the knight, that is pretty obvious. After pawn captures, now you play king to h3, and now there is no defense against rook to g1. You will not be able to block with the knight. Queen can simply capture it, as the f7 pawn is pinned. You can simply capture it, king h8, queen h6 check, king comes here, and now rook to g1 will be deadly. There's nothing to do here. You can block with the queen, but then again it's checkmate. Svidler did not play knight to f5 in the game. He played a similar idea, but with a different move order. He played king to h1, and it's winning just the same. The only difference why knight to f5 is better than first king to h1 is because now black can decide to prolong the game, you know, for no reason. If something like rook captures on d4 is played, rook captures on d4, and queen captures on d4, now rook to g1 check can be met with queen captures on g1. And while this will not be sufficient for black to actually hold this game, he can prolong it and, you know, make white play it for 3 more hours if needed. But yeah, that's pretty much the only difference why knight f5 is immediately better, because it ends the game immediately, whereas king to h1 makes it last a couple of more moves. But okay, Shankland, of course, did not go for this meaningless maneuver. Rather, he played bishop captures on e4 with the idea of now bringing the bishop to g6. Of course, Svidler is not interested in capturing it. He has a different idea. Rook to g1 check, bishop to g6, and now, again, you can feel free to pause the video here and try to find how white wins this position now. For those of you who were able to do it for the second time in this video, congratulations, you really are an excellent player. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, knight captures on e6 is the idea. And f captures on e6 was played in the game, but it's very interesting that if knight captures on e6, there's a very nice move to find rook to c5, and now black is lost. You have to move the queen, and then ideas like rook to h5 are possible with checkmate to follow. If you capture the rook, then you get rook captures on g6, and after pawn captures, then bishop captures on e6 will be checkmate. The king has nowhere to go. And on the other hand, after rook to c5, if knight captures on c5, then rook captures on g6 is checkmate immediately, as the pawn is pinned. You cannot capture the rook, the bishop is pinning the pawn. So, after knight captures on e6, Shankland didn't capture with the knight. He played f captures on e6, and now comes rook captures on g6. Excellent idea. If you run away with the king, then rook to g7 is coming with mate soon to follow. Knight captures on g6 was played. We have queen captures, and now doesn't really matter. If you go to h8, it will be a different idea, but queen to h6 check, king g8, rook g1 check, and after king moves, checkmate will soon follow. So Shankland went king to f8. We have queen to h6 check, king to e7, and here feel free to pause the video for the third time and find a move that wins this game for white, as you know, you came so close, you don't want to play something that doesn't win this game. So for those of you who were able to do it even for the third time, congratulations. You know, it's not enough to just get a winning game, you also have to win it. So here, if you played queen to g7 check or queen to h7 check, then you are winning this game. If you played anything else, you will most likely not win this game. So queen to h7 was played in the game, and it was in this position that Samuel Shankland resigned the game. Why did he resign? Well, you have to move the king. If you move it to e8 or f8, it doesn't really matter. If king e8, then rook to g1 is deadly. There's no defense against rook to g8. You can block it, but it doesn't really matter. If black decided to do this, then white can even make a little joke and ignore black's queen and say, okay, you're getting checkmated either way. Or if not, I'm just gonna grab your queen on the other move. Another thing, after this queen to h7 check, if you go to d6, then it's mate in 1, queen to c7, of course you saw this, is checkmate in 1, the bishop is covering d5, and the king has nowhere to go. So yeah, after queen to h7, game 4 goes to Svidler, and he takes the lead in this match now. 2 more games to go in the Hoogeveen Netherlands match. So yeah, really hope you enjoyed this game. It was a very nice game and a very nice attack by white. A new game already from move 7. So really thought it was an interesting game. I would like to thank Robert Fisher, Cisco Bass, Marcus Hinterdan, Lev Ekans, and Jonathan Fishman for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon. Next video I will also do today. I will be continuing the Bobby Fischer series, so prepare yourselves. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.